Good morning. As we've got a quorum already, I now call to order the meeting of the Welfare Services Panel. Item 1 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. We've got 2 CB21247-01. Some information from the Sha Tin District Council, and then paper CB21358-01, a letter from Mr. Fernando CHEUNG on issues relating to the welfare of refugees. Items for discussion at the next meeting. And one item has been proposed by the administration, pilot scheme on community care service vouchers for the elderly. This is an important issue. Mr. Fernando CHEUNG. Yes, Chairman, concerning the welfare of refugees. About a year ago, this panel had a discussion on the welfare of refugees, and some changes have taken place since the last discussion. First of all, concerning food, the territory is divided into 3 regions, and food vouchers are provided. Previously, food in kind was provided to the refugees, and one organization was responsible for food. And then concerning all the arrangements of refugees, they have been broken down into a number of contracts. And then for the subsidy on housing, no change has been made. But last time, the administration gave us a paper telling us that the various components would be adjusted in line with inflation. But then, as we are aware, the rentals have gone up quite substantially since the last discussion. And I hope that we can have a discussion as early as possible, because I understand that there will be new contract arrangements in place in either June or July. So I hope that we can have a timely discussion of the matter. Our next meeting will be held on the 8th of June. And we've got only one item on the agenda for the time being. So if members have no objection, then we will discuss the welfare of refugees at our next meeting. All right? So we'll be discussing these 2 items next time. And we now move on to agenda item number 3. Please invite the administration in. So, item 3, setting up a new contract residential care home for the elderly at ancillary facilities block of Choi Yun Road Public Rental Housing Development, Sheung. We have with us Mrs. Eleanor Chan, PAS for Labour and Welfare. Then Ms. Cecilia Lee, Assistant Director of Social Welfare. And Mr. Kenneth Wu, CEO, Subventions and Planning, SWD. Yes, Ms. Lee, is it that you will briefly take us through the paper? Yes, Chairman. So I'll very briefly take members through the paper. So with the financial provision to be made from the Lotteries Fund, we propose to construct a 100-place contract RCHE in the PRH development at Choi Yun Road, Sheung. Government's policy is to promote aging in place as the core and institutional care as backup, but then there are some elderly persons who need residential care services. We've been inviting tenders to identify operators since 2001. And in fact, we've awarded contracts through open tenders in respect of 26 purpose-built RCHEs. About 1,800 of the places are subsidized places, and about 1,260 places are non-subsidized places. And from now till, or from 2015-16 to 2017-18, there will be another 4 new contract RCHEs to be commissioned, providing a total of over 400 new subsidized places and over 200 non-subsidized places. Now, this is a PRH development at Choi Yun Road. There will be about 1,100 domestic flats, and the planned population is 3,400. SWD thinks it is a suitable place for the provision of an RCHE. So the housing department will be responsible for design and construction in accordance with SWD specifications. We think that there will be better planning and optimal use of the site if the HD is to be responsible for the construction of the proposed RCHE. And we believe that we'll be able to award the contract in 2021. I understand that members want to see the early commencement of works, and we've already tried our very best to compress the timetable as far as possible. So the funding will come from the Lotteries Fund. And under the Government Lotteries Ordinance, the Financial Secretary has the authority to approve payments from the Lotteries Fund to finance the development of social welfare services. But then, as an administrative practice, Lotteries Fund proposals involving recurring costs of over $10 million per annum will be presented to the panel and then to the FC. Concerning recurrent funding requirement for the proposed contract RCHE, we will be paying, or will require rather, about $14 million for personal emoluments, other charges, rates, government rent, after netting off the income of service users fee. And that's why we will need to go to Finance Committee. The Housing Department consulted the North District Council in 2010 as well as in 2011. And in fact, I understand that in January 2014, the District Council's Working Group on Housing and Town Planning was further updated on the proposal. My understanding is that the District Council has no objection to the PRH development and the proposed new contract RCHE. Members, as this is a funding proposal, may I draw members' attention to paragraph 83A of the Rules of Procedure. In other words, members may not move any motion or move any amendment or speak in a matter or on a matter in which a member has a direct or indirect pecuniary interest unless the member declares the interest before he or she speaks. And so if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in the matter, please declare your interest before you speak. Fernando CHEUNG, Poon Siu Peng, Chen Hang Pam, and also I myself, and also Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. So I just want to know how many minutes I should give to each member. In that case, 5 minutes. Mr. Fernando CHEUNG. Yes, Chairman, of course we support the construction of RCHEs. In fact, we have said many times that we want the ratio between subsidized and non-subsidized places to be changed in favor of subsidized places. In this case, it's still 6-4, so this is disappointing. And then now it's 2015. I understand that works on the site have already started. So I don't know why the contract can't be awarded till 2021. It is said here that the works will only be completed in 2020. I understand that the design has already been done, and site formation and piling works are in progress. So why is it that it's going to take another 5 to 6 years to have the premises completed? In fact, 5 to 6 years is enough to complete a railway, the express rail link. But of course, I really don't know when the XLL will be completed. And we're only talking about an RCHE. I believe there will only be 2 to 3 stories. This block, or 5 stories. Oh, okay. So this is a 5-story building. Is not really a massive project. So can the construction works be expedited? That's the first point. Second, it seems that there will not be a daycare center or daycare units. Is that right? Or will there be a daycare unit? I think we should try to make the best use of the premises. And then I want to say that this site is very near to the Sheung MTR station. And of course, it's good to have an RCHE which is easily accessible to the elderly citizens and also to their family members. But then this site is also near to the area where the parallel goods trade operate. So I just want to make sure that there will be good access and easy access to the elderly citizens and also to their family members. Yes, Assistant Director? Yes, yes, I'll reply, and then Mr. Wu will give members more details about the facilities to be provided. Yes, I understand that Mr. Cheung is concerned that the entrance to the RCHE may be obstructed by the parallel goods traders. Now, in fact, for RCHEs as well as daycare centers for the elderly, we do bear in mind the importance of safe access for the elderly persons, because elderly citizens need to go out to see the doctor, attend medical appointments, or they may even have to be sent to hospital sometimes. And we will also make sure that the family members will have no difficulties visiting their elderly parents or relatives. And then we try as far as possible to provide daycare units in RCHEs.
Because we have the location for an amenities building, we have designed for a daycare center. So there are about 40 daycare places. Now, for the arrangement for the amenities building, may I ask Mr. Wu to brief us? Now, the public housing development involves about 1.23 hectares. There are 3 PRH blocks. Now, there are 2 phases in construction. The first involves the 3 PRH blocks. The works are going on. And the amenities building is in phase 2 of the construction. The site is now being used for temporary car park. Now, after phase 1 is completed, the car park will move into the phase 1 location, and then phase 2 will start. So it will start in February 2018. Completion will be in 2020. Poon Siu Ping. Now, we are all supportive of increase in RCHEs, and I agree with Mr. Fernando CHEUNG on expediting. Now you say that the PRH will be completed in 2020 and the contracts will be awarded in 2021. Now, will the contracts be awarded in the beginning of the year, middle of year, or end of year? Manpower is involved. And the 6-to-4 ratio has been criticized. Will the SWD or the government adjust the ratio and at least study that? Now, can we increase the number of places? Now, the construction cost. Now, is that already the hard and fast maximum? Let me respond on the ratio first, and then Ms. Lee can answer the other part. Now, the 6-4 ratio is for reference only. Now, we use this ratio now. In the past, there were cases of 8-to-2 or 7-to-3. Now, as explained, we will take into account the availability of residential places in the neighborhood, in the proximity, before we decide. Now, in the contract for the contract RCHEs, now the 6-4 ratio is stipulated but can be adjusted. It can be adjusted to 7.3, 7-to-3, 8-to-2, or even 9-to-1. So this is a flexible arrangement. We think it is workable. And of course, we have heard the members' views. Now, we started this flexible arrangement at the beginning of this year. And as for the details of the construction works, Ms. Lee. Now, members are concerned about when the contracts would be awarded. Now, the amenities building is in phase 2. Construction starts in 2018, and our preliminary estimate is that maybe the 3rd or 4th quarter that construction will be completed. So we hope that in 2021, in the 2nd or 3rd quarter, the contracts will be awarded. So I think you will appreciate that we all want to condense the construction works to finish them as quickly as possible. So the service might come into operation in late 2021 or 2022. Well, once the award is made, there has to be fitting out and hiring of staff. So from past experience, we have to allow for 11 or 12 months for this. So the service may commence in 2022. Now, is this already the maximum amount? Is it a fixed maximum? Now, the cost of the RCHE depends on the size and the scale. Now, the housing department takes into account factors such as material costs adjustments. Now, this is not an upper limit, but we will monitor the progress. Now, if the tendering results in higher prices, we will come back for funding. Before I speak, now the board is blocking my view. Now I have to ask two questions. Now, the DAB has all along been supportive of having more RCHEs. We hope the government will speed up the construction and so that we have more of these places as quickly as possible. And previously, we said that when the RCHEs are completed, the family members should have more opportunity to live in the housing development. So will you make that a possibility to give them these family members priority so that they can visit them more? Now, also, will the RCHE play the role of a medical center so that there can be vaccination taking place there, and also it can serve as a daycare center for the elderly in the area to go there and be cared for. Now, Mr. Chen proposes that since these RCHEs are in public housing estates, perhaps those these persons can have priority in moving into these estates. Now, we have a central waiting list, so we take into account all the factors to be concerned in deciding the priorities. Now, if we add an additional priority for those who live in this area to be given priority, I think there may be different views. Now, perhaps you can discuss with the housing department. Now, if the elderly are awarded places here, perhaps their family members can be given priority for moving into this estate. Now, this involves the location of housing units. Now, I think the housing department will take note of Welfare Service Panel members' views. Now, as for giving these people priority, I think there has to be a certain level of emergency involved now, or urgency involved. Now we let people state their preference. Now, if the elderly person stipulates a certain RCHE as his preference, then the waiting time may be longer. Now, I think there is no unanimous view or agreement on this kind of policy. On now, daycare care stations for the elderly. Now, our RCHEs are for the more frail elderly, but we have 210 elderly daycare centers. So we have health centers for the elderly under the health department. So these can be used by the elderly according to their needs. So for the RCHEs to be deployed as a healthcare station, I think major changes would have to be made. So I think we already have the facilities to achieve this function already. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, now I looked up the follow-up matters list. I went through pages 1 to 6, and there are references to the government providing suitable information relevant to the items on the agenda today. Agenda item number 2, item number 4, item number 6, item number 11. Now, of course, there's a response on Shek Mun. It's the RCHE at Shek Mun. Now your figures are very confusing. Now, on the supply of subsidized elderly care places, now you you said that you have 14,463 places. So have you break down for the subvented and the private, etc., and also the elderly on the waiting list? You said that 3,250 are on the waiting list for subvented care places, but there's 1,000 odd places, 1,000 odd persons that are not among them. So you have only 100 places. 40 are non-subvented places. 60 are called contract RCHE places. So please explain. Assistant Director, I believe Mr. Leung is referring to the Annex 1. Now, let me explain. Now, there are two categories. One is care and care and attention places and nursing home places. Now there are 14,663. That includes several modes of subvention. The first are the subvented RCHEs, and the second are the contract RCHEs. Now, in 2005, there was a transformation of subvented RCHEs, so it's equivalent to subvented RCHEs.
Mr. Leung, I believe wants some breakdown. We can provide the breakdown figures to members after the meeting, and then what place schemes we do by care and attention home places in the private sector. And there are over 31,000 elderly persons on the waiting list. But it is not true to say that they are not receiving any kind of service at all in the community. That's why in a note we have pointed out that there are 3,250 elderly persons using subsidized community care services while waiting for subsidized residential care services. And Chairman, I want to say something about the 7,175 elderly persons with inactive status on the waiting list. In fact, our usual practice is that if elderly persons are making use of our day care services, then they are given an inactive status on the waiting list, but they can always, these elderly persons can always tell us that they want to revert to the active status. Now, I think Chairman, this official really should join a listed company and announce annual report figures, because she is trying to play around with the figures. For the elderly persons do not know that they can in fact change back to active status. Just Chairman, I want to say that in fact both the elderly persons and their family members know that they can always change back to active status. And then concerning the treatment for elderly persons with inactive status, now we will of course not proactively give them places. Now these elderly persons have told us that they do not want us to allocate places to them because they will not move into the RCHEs. But then if they want to revert to active status, then we will date back to the original date of application. So in other words, there is a shortage of 7,175 places, Chairman. If you ask the elderly persons whether they want to move into RCHEs, they will definitely say yes. But then these 7,000 odd may not need the places at the moment, but then it is a fact that over 31,000 are on the waiting list. All right, no more members who would like to ask questions on this item, then I think it's my turn. Concerning this ratio, 6:4 ratio, 60-40 ratio. Now, because you still have 6 years to get funding under RAE, so can you change the ratio to 8:2? If you tell us that the ratio can be changed to 80:20, then we'll all be very happy and we will all support this paper today. Chairman, now we will finish the construction of the premises first and then seek funding from the lotteries fund. But then if you decide that the ratio should be 80:20, then of course you will obtain funding from the FS accordingly, because we don't want you to tell us that, oh, we've already got funding from the FS and so nothing can be changed. I want to say that in this paper, we're still proposing 6:4. We'll keep monitoring the situation, Chairman. And if necessary, we will change the ratio. Of course, there is this necessity. Of course, it is necessary to change the ratio. So please tell us whether you will consider changing the ratio to 80:20. Yes, we'll definitely consider that, but we can't promise. We can't promise you that it will be 80:20. Now, if you if you tell us that you're willing to consider changing the ratio, then we hope to see the new ratio in the Finance Committee paper. But then we are still far from the stage of getting funding approval. But then, Chairman, I want to say that at this point in time, the reference or the starting point is still 60 to 40. But then after having heard our views, will you change the ratio to 80 to 20? Because many members have suggested that it should be 80 to 20. As chairman, I want to say that 60 to 40 is the reference. And even if the contract is allocated on a 60 to 40 basis, but you're just saying that after you've awarded the contract, you can discuss with the operator whether the ratio can be changed. But I hope that you can tell the prospective bidders that the ratio may be changed to 80 to 20 or even 90 to 10 later. But tell us whether you're willing to consider the ratio 80 to 20. Chairman, I can only say that I'm willing to consider member suggestion, but I can't promise that the ratio 80 to 20 will appear in the FC paper. But I think it's half a step forward, because at least you haven't told me that you are unwilling to consider any change to the ratio. And we hope to see the 80-20 ratio, 80-20 ratio in the FC paper. All right. Members, I understand that members want the ratio to be 80 to 20 instead of 60 to 40. Apart from this, do members have any objection to this papers going to the Finance Committee? No? Then thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 4 on the agenda. Salary adjustment arrangements for staff in NGOs receiving lump sum grant subvention. We have Ms. Carol Ip, Director of Social Welfare, Mr. Kwok Chi Leung, Assistant Director of Social Welfare, and Mr. Kenneth Chang, PAS for Labour and Welfare Bureau. Welcome. All right. I think the director can take us through the paper after all the officials have been seated. In fact, we do understand the situation well, so please be brief. Yes, Chairman, I know that members have all read the paper, and I would just highlight a few salient points. First of all, para 4, our policy and principle in dealing with the issue of pay adjustment, and then we've also told members the SWD's arrangements. On the 16th of January, the Civil Service Pay Adjustment paper was discussed by the Finance Committee. The government, as a general rule, is not involved in the determination of pay or pay adjustment of staff working in subvented bodies. These are matters between the concerned bodies as employers and their employees. And so government will not directly impose any pay adjustment applicable to the civil service to employees in the subvented sector. And so it would be up to individual NGOs as employers to decide whether to increase the salaries of their own employees, and if so, the rate of increase. In fact, on the 20th of January this year, SWD issued a letter to NGOs explaining the arrangements on a salary adjustment arising from the 2014-15 CSPA and principles of adjustments to the personal emolument portion with reference to CSPA. And we've also reminded NGOs that they should adjust the salaries of their staff with retrospective effect from the 1st of April 2014. In fact, we have been liaising very closely with NGOs, and generally, NGOs adopt the following practices in respect of salary adjustment. Namely, salary adjustment policies are set out in the terms and conditions of the employment agreements or contracts of staff members. Second, salary adjustment policies of the NGOs have been endorsed by their governing bodies in accordance with the respective NGOs' internal guidelines and staff manuals, which are made known to the staff when they are employed. Then staff of the NGOs will be duly consulted or informed of the salary adjustment policies before they are implemented. And the salary adjustment policies are in line with the prevailing HRM policies and procedures of the respective NGOs. So we have looked at the factors that NGOs take into account in deciding their salary adjustment policies. So NGOs want a consistent HRM policy for the whole organization, which may cover welfare, education, health, or other public service sector, the spirit of employment contract, agreement with staff, existing staff structures, incentive for good performance, and also fringe benefits for staff, and so on and so forth. In fact, we have been communicating with NGOs on their salary adjustments and arrangements for 2014-2015. For staff serving in the organizations, NGOs either adjusted the staff salary by the same percentage as the CSPA, or spent the full amount of the additional allocations on salary adjustment for staff. So all the NGOs were able to do this. And then secondly, NGOs in general provided back pay on salary adjustment to their staff serving in the organization. And then what about the practice applicable to ex-staff or former staff? NGOs, in accordance with this HRM policies and also agreements of the staff, either provided back pay on salary adjustment for ex-staff or did not do so. So some NGOs did that, some did not. And they have already informed various staff members of the salary adjustment arrangement for the financial year and stated the reason for their decision. So I understand that this year the staff are very concerned. Now, in fact, this mechanism has been in place for a few years, but then this year the concern is the greatest.
The past civil service pay adjustment now it was usually approved in the summer recess of the previous year. So the SWD usually in August or September dispenses the additional funding for salary adjustment. But this year when the LegCo approved the salary adjustment, it was postponed to January 16th of 2015 before the approval was given. So it was passed. So we wrote to the organizations on January the 16th, and the funding was only provided in February. So the period has been postponed from August to September to February this year. So there have been more employees who left. And the employees themselves knew when they want to leave the jobs, they would usually leave in August or September when the salary adjustment has been awarded. But this year it was later than they expected. So we are going to discuss with the organizations. Our staff have visited over 140 NGOs, and we tell them if in the future the approval for the funding would be postponed or it's uncertain, we would want to discuss with them early. Now many NGOs are now doing the work. When we phone them or visit them, we find that the NGOs are reviewing the salary structure and arrangement for their staff. So given the present experience, many NGOs are reviewing the arrangement. So in the future, if there again is a postponement in the approval of funding for salary adjustment, we will try to discuss with them as early as possible. And now members' discussion. We expect to have about 35 minutes. Maybe there can be 2 rounds for some members. Lee Cheuk-yan, Kwok Wai Keung, Pu Xiu Ping, Fernando CHEUNG, Tan Ka Piu, Yip Chi Ming, and me. 7. So 4 minutes. Maybe we can have 2 rounds for some. Lee Cheuk-yan. Now, it was blamed on the postponement. If early there's back pay. Now, the problem is the same. With lump sum grant, you condone the NGOs, you don't care what they do, you merely advise them to do certain things, but there is no regulation. Now you have best practice guidelines. It's been talked about for a few years. It seems that it's being finished up. Now in these guidelines, are there stipulations that the subvented NGOs, now when the staff, even when they leave, they would receive the back pay. Now also the MPF issue has not been resolved. The government says it would prepare people for the population aging issue. Now 6.8% is given. Now that how can that be enough? Now it used to be 10% for 10 years, 15 years, for 15% for 15 years, and now it's 6.8%. So despite the pressure from population aging, social welfare workers become a second rate class. Now will you revive the system so that social workers are not treated as second-rate employees? No, we rather than so that there won't be any insulting of these employees, as in the case of Ho Kwan Yew. Now, on the best practice guidelines, now we earlier reported to the panel. Now, on 1st of July last year, we already started implementing the best practice guidelines. Now, we have discussed with the sector frequently. Now, we finally agreed with on the best practice guidelines among all the stakeholders, the staff, the users, and so the NGOs have to do certain things on salary adjustment. They have to increase at the same ratio as for civil service staff in terms of salary. And now, if the number of staff has changed, they can use the funding provided by the government and spend all of it on salary adjustment. So all this can be done by the NGOs according to the best practice guidelines. Now, as for back pay, how about back pay? Now, are you the member referring to the back pay for employees who left? Now, that can be done at NGOs too. Now, as for back pay for employees who left, now that's not written in the best practice guidelines. There was no consensus. Well, the SWD pays the money, but you don't care if just because there's no agreement. Mr. Kwok Kwang, I'm not a member of the panel. I'm thankful that I can speak. Now, I also voiced this issue in the civil service panel. Now, the director said that those who are serving can get the back pay, but as for those employees who left, the back pay was only awarded in some NGOs but not in others. So it's a loophole. How many NGOs were able to give back pay to employees who left, and how many did not? Now, it's been said that filibuster made things worse. Now, so the back pay was supposed to be in April, from April. Now it was if it's approved in June, and then it can be paid out in August, and it can be resolved easily. But now it dragged over for 10 months. There are more people who left. The amount has been larger, so it's all due to filibustering. Now, just now the director. Now, there hasn't been much concrete response. Despite the cases, it's reported yesterday. Now, the NGOs received a letter on the 20th of January. The employee left on 24th of January, but he didn't get the back pay. The NGO didn't heed the guideline. On the best practice guidelines, this sum of money belongs to the staff. Now the Labor Welfare Bureau staff were represented, were there. Now, does the money belong to the employees who left? If the money was not given to them, is this is it a salary in arrears or owed? And will the file be open to follow up? Now, Mr. Lee raised this point, and Mr. Kwok followed this up. Is this a loophole? Is it salary owed? Now, under the one lump sum grant system, after the grant is provided, the NGOs are free to use the money. Now, according to the best practice guideline, the agreed arrangement doesn't cover the employees who left regarding the back pay. They are not entitled this as pay owed. Now, the funds are either fully paid out or the salary adjustment is at the same percentage. Now, this is a requirement. Now, actually, there is no monitoring. You said that the money is to be used for salary adjustment. Of course, the guidelines don't stipulate that it's going to be paid to employees who left. How about the Labor Welfare Bureau? The director, can you answer that question? Now, this is not salary owed, so the Labor and Welfare Bureau cannot follow up. Now, you are Director for Social and Welfare. You cannot answer on behalf of LWB. Now, under lump sum grant system, this is subvention funding for the NGO, and after the funds are provided, the NGOs can exercise a degree of autonomy, and we have said frequently to the sector that there must be clear arrangements and there must be discussion with the staff. So when we send out the letters, we encourage the NGOs to discuss with the staff to provide them with adequate notices. And under the system, the NGOs do have their autonomy, and as I explained, regarding how the NGOs deploy the subvented funds, they have their own considerations. They have to take into account their overall resources and also take into account the spirit of the contract with the staff. Now, on employees who left, whether they are entitled to back pay, now very often it's very clear in the menu for staff, so the staff are very clear on that. Now, so it's not a salary owed, but we agree that there can be improvement in the arrangement so that things can be better for both the NGOs and the staff who left. Now, can you provide the figures on the number of NGOs who are able to provide back pay and those who cannot for employees who left? Now, I think it's about 50-50. Mr. Kwok, are we talking about back pay for salaries for staff who left? Yes, that was what I'm talking about. Yes, that's the 50-50 that I was referring to. Now, for employees who left, some NGOs provide back pay. Now, the usual arrangement is that the back pay is in August, September, so they use the directors' meeting as a cut-off point. Now, let's make clear, the best practice guidelines do not refer to employees who left. Mr. Pun Siu Peng, now the director said just now that there's no back pay issue for employees who left. Now, I think that is argued, that may be controversial. Now, this year the funding has come late. Now, that is also true of some statutory bodies like the VTC. Now, the hospital authority provided back pay to staff who left.
So we're worried that this may become a recurrent situation. And we're told that you visited over 100 organizations and have had some discussions with them. And so will the government require the NGOs to change their policies or guidelines because they've done their work, and even if they have departed, they should be given the back pay? I think it's best if NGOs can follow the hospital authorities' practice. Yes, Director. Chairman, concerning future arrangements, we've talked to many NGOs. Many of them are in the process of reviewing their pay and salary policies. And But then one thing is clear, and that is we require NGOs to make all the information known to the staff. We also want NGOs to have discussions with their staff. Under the lump sum grant system or subvention, organizations do have some flexibility, but then of course it's important that they have manuals, clear guidelines, and I understand that because of such concerns of the staff, they are having reviews. Now, I don't think it's really acceptable for the government to just ask the NGOs to have discussions with the staff. Chairman, in the lump sum grant subvention steering committee, there was detailed discussion. The government's policy is that we will tell the NGOs very clearly that the additional allocations are backdated to 1st April. And so we do encourage NGOs to give back pay to their staff. In other words, to adjust the salaries of their staff with retrospective effect from that date. But what if NGOs refuse to provide back pay for the former staff? So it seems that this has fallen within the scope of the so-called flexibility enjoyed by NGOs under the lump sum grant subvention system. All right, Mr. Tan Ka Pil, that's unfair that the ex-staff do not get back pay from the NGOs. Mr. Kwok has given this example, and before the staff member left, the NGO had already received notification that there would be additional allocations for salary adjustment for staff. So I think it's unfair that the former staff do not get any back pay. So as the money hasn't gone into the pockets of the former staff, will you get the money back from the NGOs? Because there is one important principle, and that is the money must be used for pay adjustment for the staff. So, want to know whether you will get the money back from the NGOs. And then yesterday, Mr. Kwok convened a press conference, and at the press conference, it was disclosed that for the staff of contract homes, they did not even get an adjustment. So will you try to make sure that the staff of contract homes will also get annual pay adjustments? Yes, Chairman, thank you. Concerning how many former staff members are affected, we do not have the figure. Now, concerning the additional subventions, NGOs either adjusted the staff salary by the same percentage as the CSBA or spent the full amount of the additional allocations on salary adjustment for staff. Some NGOs, in fact, were able to do both. Now, no NGOs are non-profit making in nature. And for some of the NGOs, when they get additional allocations, they offer rewards to good performers or those who do not really get very high salaries. In the MPF days, we were in the Provident Fund days. We were told that some of the staff would be made redundant, so that there would be fewer staff sharing the Provident Fund. So is it that from now on NGOs would welcome filibustering so that they will be able to pocket the money that should have been used to back pay the former staff? No, Chairman, concerning Provident Fund, there are the standard arrangements in place, and also we do monitor the NGOs. We need to make sure that the lump sum grant is used either for staff emoluments or for the delivery of social services. Mr. Frankie Yick. Thank you, Chairman. I believe the employees do have employment contracts with the NGOs. So I think the first question is whether there has been any breach of the terms of the contract or the contracts or employment agreements. And the answer is no, according to the director, because the agreements or contracts do not include a condition on back pay. So I think this is really not a big issue because both employers and employees act in accordance with the terms of the employment agreement or contract. Now, the lump sum grant system seeks to give more flexibility to the NGOs. And then it is said here that there was a review in 2008 and it is concluded that the additional funding provided in line with CSPA should be spent solely on staff in subvented services. So in other words, if the NGOs have any surplus, so to speak, they have to spend it on, say, offering rewards to good performers. So in fact, if an NGO can't retain the staff and can't provide salary adjustments in accordance with market conditions, then the staff will leave, and as a result, this organization can no longer provide services. And as a result, you will not be providing any lump sum grant to the organization anymore. So I think it's just a free market operation. Do you agree, Director? Yes, Chairman. I agree. You know, the arrangements between employers and employees are stipulated in the employment contracts or staff menus. So in fact, many staff members do know that if they want to resign, then they should choose a certain month or a certain period of time in a year. Now, in fact, NGOs can flexibly make use of the additional allocations to reward the outstanding and dedicated staff. So, in fact, NGOs can enjoy flexibility to reward the good performers or dedicated staff. We understand that there are different arrangements among NGOs. In July last year, the best practices menu was launched. And we hope that in terms of accountability, best practices, NGOs can make reference to each other's practices. NGOs have assessment checklists on whether they have adhered to the best practices and guidelines, and such assessment forms will be returned to the SWD, and then we're going to have exchange sessions, seminars for NGOs, so that NGOs, big, medium-sized, and small, can exchange experience. Now, for different NGOs, depending on their size and their characteristics, they may have different HRM policies and arrangements. And we hope that through more exchanges, NGOs can learn from each other's best practices. Mr. Fernando CHEUNG. Thank you. Now, concerning back pay for staff who have resigned and left, or the increments. This is not an increment. This is the annual adjustment in accordance with inflation. Now, for civil servants, they will get the back pay even if they've resigned. But for NGOs and the staff of NGOs, you claim that NGOs can enjoy some flexibility. But then it is said that the money should be used for its designated purpose, and there should be timely salary adjustments for their staff. So the use of the funding is for adjusting the salaries of the staff in accordance with inflation. But NGOs do not at all adhere to this objective. They do not provide back pay to staff who have already departed. And in fact, in some contracts or employment agreements, there can be no provision for back pay. So in other words, under the so-called best practices, NGOs can still decide not to provide back pay to staff who have departed. So what's the use of having best practices for the NGOs to follow? So NGOs can do whatever they like under the lump sum grant subvention.
Also, the payment of bonus is up to the NGO. Now, the neighborhood self-help organization is a good example. The staff get 17 months pay. The chief executive gets 180,000 and or even 220,000 in the recent occasion. Now, the NGOs can accumulate surplus, and then they can distribute the surplus as an incentive to the staff. Now, this is against the principle of charitable organizations. When the NGOs can issue some kind of awards like these, that is against the principle of NGOs providing service. When we see the NGOs being able to make money and then distribute the money to staff, then the nature of the NGOs has changed. So first, the best practices, are they mandatory, or people don't have to observe them? And secondly, how about the bonuses? Now, in the best practice guidelines, the references to staff, when we discussed this at the time, now actually we discussed over several years before agreement was reached, and we discussed whether the staff who resigned should be referred to. but there was a clear conclusion that the salaries, that the staff who resigned would not be included. It's all because there was no agreement reached. It was not possible to reach a consensus. Now, also, the incentive pay is not a bonus or a sharing of profits. Now, there are different considerations. Maybe it's to provide a reward or to try to keep the talents. Now, of course, we are aware that we should try to use these funds to improve the service, and so we have been discussing with the NGOs, and actually this is being reviewed at every NGO. So I'll wait till the second round. Chen Chi-chun. Thank you, Chairman. Now, just now, members said it's all the culprit was filibustering, and then people don't talk about this because filibustering highlights the government's irresponsibility, shunting of responsibility. Now, I like to ask. Under lump sum grant system, director refers to autonomy. First, the back pay doesn't have to be paid to the staff who resign, so it's all up to the NGO. Now, is it so autonomous that the money doesn't even have to be paid to existing staff, and the surplus, can it be distributed to serving staff? Can it be paid as a reward or incentive amount for the serving staff? Now, at the time, members did not question this. Now, when the money reaches the NGO, you say that they have the autonomy. Now, of course, different NGOs have different practices. Now, at hospital authority, now actually they have a meeting and the payment is late by 1/3 a month, but they do offer back pay to staff who resign. So the money belongs to the government or to the public. Now, it's reasonable for a government to impose a provision that the back pay has to be paid also to staff who resign. Now, of course, the NGOs prefer to use the money on existing staff to make existing staff happier. Now, whom are you trying to benefit? Are you trying to benefit the staff, the NGO itself, or to benefit the management of the NGO? Now, is it mandatory for existing staff, as I said? Now, either the amount was paid to all paid to the existing staff, or the salary adjustment is identical to that of for civil servants. Now, what is meant by best practice? Now, it's on accountability, governance, financial management. Now, this is also to do with transparency. It applies to the entire social welfare sector. It relates to governance of social welfare NGOs. Very often it involves the accountability and transparency with regard to staff. Now, of course, an NGO or any other organization operates by the efforts of management as well as staff. Now, my question was, the amount that you didn't pay out to staff who resigned, can it be used as incentive payment to existing staff? It depends on the NGO itself. In some cases, the amount is fully paid to salary for salary adjustment, but it cannot be but still it cannot be the same percentage as for the civil servants because some NGOs employ more staff. The question is very simple. The NGOs are free to spend the money if there is any surplus. Dr Hon, the officer just now said that there was no data. Now, how many people didn't get the salary adjustment? They didn't know. Now, if you don't have the data, how can you improve the system? You don't know whether it's fair or not. This is government money. It's not money in a private company. Now you give them the money, they have the autonomy. What principles? Is it same pay for same work? Now, well, maybe you should work there instead, and then you will know how it feels like to have it all being decided by others whether you get the pay adjustment. Now it's very simple. You just follow the rules. Now we hear the staff, some members said that this is due to filibustering. Well, if you are a labor union member, if you want to change things, you have a strike. This is a stoppage of work. This is worse than filibustering. So how can you blame members? Now this was true a long time ago. Now Lord Chi Kwong thinks he's clever. He is supported by the entire Democratic Party. Now it's all decided a long time ago, you say. Now, how is it in accordance with modern principles like transparency and fairness? Now, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, you give them the money, they have all the discretionary power. This is not the first time. Now, a certain government director studies a law course for 2 years to, in the name of trying to improve his service to the department. Now, this is a passing of advantage. Now, so the money was used to pay for that person's studies. Now, it may be office politics. You just benefit the person you like. There's no monitoring. Now, according to the best practice guidelines, well, is it really? It's very bad guidelines. Now you know it's wrong, but you don't change it. Will you do that at the government? I don't think you do. Now, It's true for the express rail link. Now, there are all kinds of loopholes in the lump sum grant system. The people at the top benefit, those at the bottom are disadvantaged. Now, can't you change the system? Any system can be changed. Kwakaki. Now, this is really absurd. Now, social workers are supposed to seek justice for people, and now they are the people who receive assistance. And the government has become the bad employers. Now, previously, the social welfare NGOs just follow the government and they get everybody gets back pay. And now the best practice guidelines have become the very inhumane guidelines. Now, some NGOs benefit people at the top. They don't give the money to staff who resign. They use it for bonus or incentive. Now, would the incentive payments be made to people, to staff at the bottom, at the lower levels? Now, the lump sum grant system has bad effects that we anticipate would last a long time. Now, will the government continue to condone these bad employers? Now, I'd like to ask the director, what's your answer? Chairman, regarding the system of lump sum grant, now I'm sure you all know in 2008 there was a very major review. Now, at the time, the review committee met with over 100 organizations and received 133 representations, and the stakeholders felt that there were merits to the system. Now, it's of all these are the people who benefit. They are actually increasing the pay for themselves.
Now, time's up. I just want to know whether the government will continue to connive at the acts of these NGOs, and whether the lump sum grant subvention system can be changed or revamped. Chairman, any system can be changed. Nothing is perfect. We need to go on seeking improvements. Previously, there was no requirement on NGOs in respect of pay matters, but then we have got the best practices, we've got the guidelines, and we have introduced an enhancement to the effect that additional funding in line with CSPA should be spent solely on staff and subvented services, and in October, NGOs will submit their first assessment checklist to us, and at the end of this year or early next year, we will report back to the panel after we've analyzed the feedback in the assessment checklist. But then at the same time, discussions are going on how to enhance the arrangements. We've met over 100 NGOs. There are guidelines, and all NGOs are learning from experience, so it is not that no progress will be made or has been made. We are, in fact, continuously trying to enhance the system. But then what about those staff who have already left but have not been given their back pay? Now, so it is not that they have been or they have suffered from deductions or unreasonable deductions. All right. So because of flaws in the lump sum grant subvention system, best practices were drawn up, but then the best practices can't solve the problems in the lump sum grant subvention system. Now the adjustment should be for or that salary adjustment should be for that particular post, irrespective of whether that staff member is still in post or has already departed. Now, some NGOs are talking about administrative difficulties. Some are saying that we should only look at the spirit of the contract, and some say that NGOs have used their money to reward good performance. But I just want to point out that the principle is that this amount provided in line with CSPA is for salary adjustment. NGOs enjoy the flexibility under the lump sum grant system. Even if they get the additional funding, they may decide to exercise their flexibility and not to spend the money at all on the staff. But of course, if they do so, the incumbent staff will protest. But then for those who have departed, they tend to make less noise, so to speak. But then it doesn't mean that we should just ignore the interests of these former staff. You sign the agreement with the or rather you sign the sign the agreement with the NGO in the first year, and then in the second year you may provide the NGO with supplementary provision so that the NGO can decide to provide rewards for good performance. But then I think government should make sure that the adjustment will be for the staff, including staff who have departed, or else the government can take back the money. Now, because if the government doesn't do this, then the organizations may decide to exercise the flexibility not to back pay the staff who have departed. So I think it's important that the government stipulates that if the organizations do not provide the back pay, then the money will be taken back by the government. And then some different organizations adopt different back pay dates. For example, the day when a circular is issued, the day when the SWD provides the funding, the day on which EXCO gave approval, the day on which LegCo gave approval. So so I think sorry, I think I've used up my time, and I hope that the SWD can consider my suggestion. I think we have to move on to the second round. 5 members, including myself, 6, because we've already overrun, so I can only give each member 2 minutes. And because the third item is also an important one. Lee Cheuk Yan, Kwok Wai Keung, Tan Ka Pil, Fernando CHEUNG, Leong Kwok Hong, and I myself, 6 members. All right, 3 minutes. But I'll enforce the time limit very strictly. Lee Chak-yan. In fact, I asked some questions about MPF. And second, I want to know how much money there is. I mean, money saved by NGOs under the lump sum grant mechanism. Previously, it was 2.5 billion. I want to know how much money there is in this fund. And I think the best practices are extremely harsh. They are the best harsh practices. In fact, it's simple. You just make sure that NGOs will adopt this practice. If you backpedal because of objections from the NGOs, then those are not best practices. NGOs can always have their way. That's not fair. Now, in fact, the balance is over $2.6 billion. So I just want to say that the sum has remained at a rather stable level, $2.5 to $2.6 billion in recent years. And concerning the reserves for MPF and other things. Now, the principle is that if the reserves exceed 25%, then the excess will have to be returned to the government. And then for MPF reserves, this is to make sure that NGOs will honor their promises to the staff. We've looked at the pledges given to NGOs or given to the staff by NGOs over the years, and we think 6.8% is the right level. But I want to say this is an average, and this is this represents an undertaking to the staff by the NGOs. No, I'm not saying that 6.8% is excessive. How come it's not 5, 10, 15? Why can't it be 5, 10, 15? And then $2.6 billion. So the level has remained stable. And do you know that a CEO, in fact, got $180,000? So you can see that those in the high-ranking positions can get more bonus. No time, sorry. So 5, 10, 15. When we visited the organizations, they said that they were making increased contributions to MPF. And this year, we have introduced an enhancement to the lump sum grant subvention system. We hope that we can see improvements to MPF contributions. Chairman, I want a paper on how the NGOs deal with MPF. How many have adopted 5, 10, 15? How many 6.8? So please do not tell me what you have done in respect of enhancement. All right, so give us the factual situation. How many 5%? How many 6.8%? How many 5, 7, 10, 15%? All right. So do tell us the situation under the various scenarios. Mr. KK Kwok, just now, members who filibuster say that filibustering doesn't cause any harm, but can give rise to a lot of benefits. But then, Chairman, you did say that because of filibustering, the adjustment could only be made at a very late stage, and as a result, some staff suffered, and some were suffering more. But then we're told that in fact everything depends on the content of the contracts or the agreements. If some NGOs may decide not to back pay the staff and who have departed, and So I want to say that these are not best practices at all. While I respect the best practices, I think the back pay owed to staff who have left, I think that amounts to wages in arrears, but the director said no. So is it that the director has decided to take the lead to breach the best practices? Now say, if an organization promises an employee that the pay will be adjusted from today onwards, but then the employer does have some cash flow problems, and so the adjustment will only be given to the staff member or the employee 6 or 10 months later. So would the Labor Department take action? Director, now I want to say that NGOs must honor the terms in the employee contracts or agreements. Then concerning pledges made by NGOs to existing employees and employees who have departed, in fact, there is a very clear understanding. We will ask NGOs to enhance accountability and transparency, and to have more discussions with the staff, and to give a clear notification to the staff. And the director said that the mechanism will be enhanced. I wonder if the loophole will be plugged. Now, Director, you've only got about 20 seconds. I don't think this is really a loophole under the existing mechanism, but we are having discussions with NGOs, and if NGOs indicate that they are willing to back pay all staff who have departed, of course we will welcome that move. But then NGOs do have a lot of factors to consider, and so we really hope that when employees leave the organizations, then all the sums and accounts will be settled, instead of leaving some loose ends to settle a few months later. Mr. Tenkapiu, in fact, my second question has not been answered, and I'm talking about staff in contract homes.
Even the existing staff there don't get the same adjustment as for civil servants, and the contracts stipulate that they won't get the pay adjustments of civil servants. Now, can the director look into this? Now, these contract RCHEs, can the employees benefit from these inflation adjustments? And for the lump sum grant institutions, now I believe some of the service is outsourced. Now, so the back pay is less, and so there are more money left for their own staff. Now, if the contracts don't include the third provision, of course there are some difficulties involved. Now, if there is the renewal of the contract, we ask that these inflation adjustments should be included according to the contract. Now, as for the outsourcing, now when usually there is a contract, like we have FSAs with NGOs, the terms and spirit of the contract have to be observed. That's the principle. I'd like to supplement one point. Now, according to our understanding, the NGOs may purchase some services from outside. Now, this is more common with paramedical staff. Now, they may adopt this mode for contract requirements. Now, they have to provide the level of service as per the contract. Now, for them to purchase the professional services, this is allowed under the current system. So contract RCGs can pay annual adjustment. How can we ensure that the outsourcing to RCGs will also the RCGs will? How can we ensure that they will have these back pay provisions? Well, as I said, it's under the contract. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. Now, the back pay should be received by both existing staff and staff who resign, but the NGOs get the lump sum grant and then they don't give the back pay, and you say this is in respect of the spirit of the contract. But why don't you respect the principle of the payment? Because the payment was to furnish cost of living adjustment. Now, you should make the adjustment. You should make the adjustment up to the date the staff resign. Now, you would certainly do that for civil servants. Why don't you require that the NGOs who receive your grants, why don't you require them to comply? And you said that the incentive payments are part of the salary. Now, this is quite a shock. Now, the NGO concerned, the neighborhood help organization, they are one of the top 10 NGOs that receive funding from the government. They get over $300 million every year from the government, and they get the rest from donors. Now, so the senior staff get more incentive pay or bonus at the end of the year. So they don't care about the level of service. They hire fewer staff. They just try to make the bottom line look better. So you mustn't treat this incentive pay or bonus issue lightly. It will affect the social welfare sector in a fundamental way. Any response? I'll be very quick. I know the sector is very concerned about the incentive payments. Now we have a rule. All NGOs should have an incentive mechanism, and it must be with the support of the management board, and all the decisions have to be recorded. Now, regarding the reserves, if there are more funds in the reserves, then we require that the NGO spend the money in respect of the services, but it can be used also for better pay to the staff and to staff development. Now the director used terms such as encourage, hope, require. Now, actually, they can't make them do it. Now Lord Chi Kwong instigated the lump sum grant system. It's now been 10 odd years. Now, why can't you change the system? Now, previously, there were no such poverty assistance funds. Now, you just are unwilling to change. You say it's not a bonus because it's an NGO. Now, you say just because it's an NGO, they pay out the money, but you don't call it a bonus. So it's just like for Islam financial institutions, they don't call it interest, but they call it some other name. Now, the NGOs, they have the discretion to give or not give the money, and then they have the power to deal with the surplus as that results. Now, you can't have a safety box at the director's office for monies and use it in any way you like. You can't. The money is given to the NGOs that you regulate, but you tell them that you cannot tell them what to do. That's ridiculous. It's a device whereby you do nothing. It's not a device by which you achieve certain outcomes. Now, I don't like to insult you, Director. We all know that this is wrong. Why don't you change it? You can't tell us how many people suffered as a result. You can't tell us about the people who benefited, who took the money. Well, okay, I'll leave it for now. I think I will not take up 3 minutes because we don't have enough time. I'm totally against this. Whatever the amount used for bonus or whatever, it's totally inappropriate as an NGO. Now, it relies on public funding and donations, or it engages in social enterprise where any money earned should be plowed back into service. Now, if there's an NGO that pays 1.7 months pay as bonus, now I roughly calculated that it distributed a little over $20 million. It may have accumulated $70 or $80 million, so it paid out 1 quarter, and I believe that remaining funds should be paid back to the government as clawback. Now, you give them incentive pay, but they will still be in the job even if you don't pay them the incentive pay. Now, the NGOs have different ways to accumulate surpluses. Ultimately, it may be the service that suffers. So I'm totally against this approach, this practice. Now, I'd like the director to respond. Can you think of ways so that the back pay is not part of the lump sum grant, so that if the money is not paid out, then it has to be clawed back? Maybe you have to discuss this with the Treasury Services. Now, on salary adjustment, either the NGO pays it all to the staff as salary adjustment, or it will give this to give the staff an adjustment of same identical magnitude. I'm talking about staff who resign. Now, if they don't give the back pay to them, the money would have to be clawed back to the government. So the NGOs don't have any incentive to do this anymore. So the staff who resign will be able to get the money. Now, this involves the arrangement for the whole NGO. Now, under the lump sum grant system, suppose they're supposed to hire 100 staff, but if they want more employees to provide more service, they might hire 120 staff. So this is a grant. So every time there's a salary adjustment, the amount is put in the lump sum grant. Now, if you want a separate payment, it's not a grant under the lump sum grant. Yes, that's exactly what I am asking for. Any rapid remark to be added? I'm explaining that this is against the spirit of the lump sum grant system. But I want to make clear that the back pay amount is not part of the lump sum grant. Now, very soon it will be the next year. Now, it's already May. So today, this year's lump sum grant, this year's salary adjustment maybe will be announced soon. So I'd like to finish up on this item of agenda. Next item of agenda, that is the setting up social welfare facilities, excluding welfare blocks in public housing premises. Please come in. We have Ms. Carol Yip, Director of Social Welfare, Ms. Ada Fong, Deputy Director of Housing, Ms. Rosalind Wong, of Chief Estate Surveyor, Mr. Lam Ka Tai, Deputy Director of Social Welfare, Mr. Kok Chi Leung, the Assistant Director of Social Welfare.
Now, members, there aren't too many members in the conference room now, but I think there is really quite a lot to say about this matter, and so can we extend the end time of the meeting till 1:15 p.m. please? Director, please be concise. Yes, this is about the provision of social welfare facilities in PRH developments. I will mention 3 points briefly, and then the Housing Department will elaborate on 2 points. In fact, we work with the Planning Department and the Housing Department at the planning stage of PRH developments. There will be planning for the overall supply of social and community facilities in the area. And so at that stage, we will give our input as to what welfare facilities should be provided. Then second, concerning non-domestic premises in PRH estates, we work with the HD to explore the feasibility of converting appropriate vacant non-domestic premises in PRH estates for welfare uses. For example, schools, kindergartens, car parks. But of course, we need to take into account factors like whether there is barrier-free access and whether there is adequate fire safety equipment. And so not all available vacant non-domestic premises and PRH estates are suitable for setting up welfare facilities. And we are also identifying suitable empty bays at the ground level of domestic rental blocks for conversion into welfare premises. Many of these empty bays were designed at the outset to maintain proper ventilation for their estates. And some have been used for provision of recreational facilities for local residents. But then there are technical constraints, and also because these spaces are usually rather small, it may not be possible to provide RCHEs there, for example. Yes, Housing Department. We, at the planning stage, look at the planning brief together with the planning department, including the demand for various types of facilities and services. Now, for example, for social welfare facilities, we look at the operational demands, easy of access, and we usually try to put them on the ground floor, on the podium, or on the lower floors of buildings. And we look at these facilities together with car parks, educational facilities, and other facilities, and where there may be ancillary facilities blocks, so as to enhance the social integration of the facilities. And then in Sha Kip Mei Estate, for example, we put all the proposed welfare facilities in a dedicated welfare block to enhance accessibility and the user-friendliness of the facilities. So this is the arrangement for welfare facilities in new estates, and for facilities in existing estates, Ms. Wong can supplement. Yes, Chairman. For existing housing estates, we work with the SWD. If we can identify suitable premises, and if technical feasibility can be established, and if there are no adverse comments from the tenants, then we can consider providing or locating the welfare facilities in the premises, in the vacant premises. Mr. KK Fong. Yes, Chairman. I want to refer to para 8. It is said that if some premises are used to provide RCHEs and RCHDs, then there will be a reduction in the number of rental units of PRH estates. There will be an adverse impact on the public housing supply. So why is it that now of course there are competing bids, so I don't think you should be looking at PRH supply from this angle. If that's your logic, then there shouldn't be government office blocks. Those blocks should be turned into PRH blocks. Now, there is a need for RCHEs and RCHDs, and why is it that your approach is that public housing gets first priority and RCHEs and RCHDs are only secondary in importance? How can you adopt such an approach? And then you're saying in this paper that suitable non-domestic premises will be considered for social welfare use. So why is it that social welfare facilities are not given priority in their own right? Why is it that they welfare facilities, especially residential homes, are subordinate to public housing development? So in a marriage relationship, for example, these homes are not wives. They are worse than concubines, and it seems that these homes are regarded as parasites of public housing estates. Who can give a reply? Director. So it is not that we are trying to put RCHEs or RCHDs against PRH units, but then the reality is that there are always competing bids. Para 8 is about conversion of or the idea of conversion of PRH flats into residential welfare facilities. But then we need to consider a host of factors if we are to adopt this approach. And for commercial facilities, there are also facilities required by the tenants, and perhaps the housing department can supplement this phone. Chairman, for new housing estates during the planning stage, if the SWD informs us that there is a demand for certain welfare facilities in the district, then we will include such facilities in the brief. But then we also have to look at feasibility. So we try to include the social welfare facilities in our planning brief. Para 7 and 8 are about the conversion of PRH flats into residential welfare facilities, and Ms. Wong can give a reply. Yes, Chairman. Chairman, Para 7 and 8 are about the situation in existing public housing estates. Now, if there are suitable premises in existing estates which can be converted into welfare facilities, we will consider the feasibility. Para 8 is about a suggestion that PRH flats be considered for conversion into residential welfare facilities. For PRH flats, which are now being used by tenants, we need to consider feasibility and many other factors in deciding whether conversion is the appropriate action to take. And we're just pointing out that there will be a reduction in the number of rental units, and there will be an adverse impact on the public housing supply. Mr. Tanka Pew, now you know there is an acute demand for PRH flats, and so it is really difficult to designate, say, a row of PRH flats for conversion into residential welfare facilities. But then are there rows of vacant flats on the lower floors of PRH estates that can be converted into welfare facilities? In Wen Tao Tong Estate in Taipo, the entire first floor is for vocational rehabilitation for disabled persons. So I want to know whether it was that floor, the entire floor was for vocational rehabilitation from day one, or was it that there was a conversion from public rental units to a workshop? Now, I don't have the information as to whether there was a conversion or whether the workshop was the use on day one. But of course, if there was conversion, there had been a feasibility study and also a consultation exercise among residents. Any other questions? Are there vacant units on the lower floors of public housing blocks which have remained vacant for quite some time? Now, if say there used to be a social welfare use, and then that use was no longer needed, then we will contact the SWD to see whether the vacant premises could be used for other welfare uses. And if the vacant premises are no longer necessary for welfare uses, then there is a mechanism whereby we make known the availability of such vacant premises for bidding by NGOs. But I want to know the vacant situation with regard to flats on the first and second floors of PRH blocks. I don't have such information with me. So then it would be very difficult for us to continue with the discussion. Yes, I understand that for new public housing estates, unless they are very small, comprising only 1 or 2 blocks, there will be premises allocated for welfare uses. But I want to know whether there are car parks, kindergartens in existing public housing estates converted to welfare uses. And I just also want to know the vacancy situation in relation to the first and second floors of PRH blocks. Without such information, it's hard to go on with the discussion. Mr. Dr Hon, to the government, when there is a will, there is a way. It was said that or many tenants said that the commercial facilities should not be sold to the link. But then according to the lawyer representing the link in court, facilities needed to be provided, but then facilities need not be provided in the same format. So in other words, some domestic units could be converted into shops, for example. But of course that has never been done. No, I think when there is a will, there is a way, but I think it is very difficult to do so nowadays because there is really an acute shortage of PRH units. So it's meaningless to talk about the conversion option. The government is turning its property into private property. Ho Man Tin Estate, North Point Estate, Wong Chuk Hang Estate, and also the Valley Road estate. They were demolished, and the flats, the private flats constructed there are very expensive, about $30,000 per square foot.
The housing authority now. There are some units for the elderly, if so the relatives can live there nearby. So the policies have gone awry, and what do you do? So I don't understand why Mr. Tang Ha-Piu doesn't agree with my filibustering. Well, he has left. He pointed out that there's a problem with you, and then he leaves. So I don't understand why the FTU blames us for filibustering. I don't know how you're going to resolve the issue. What's your question? Now, if you can't change public housing arrangements, what are the ways you have? Assuming that you can't do it. The director, now regarding the overall arrangement, now if there is going to be development of housing units now or remodeling, now there are various considerations, but there are cases of successful remodeling of car parks, etc. Now, you sold your strategic holdings to Link Rate. You delivered the whole estate to Link Rate. Now, Link Rate is waiting for the time to sell it for a good price. Now, that's why we need to filibuster. You don't even find a way to make a minor change. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG? I think the biggest problem here is that they consider it on overall basis. There's cooperation between the SWD and HD, depends on actual needs, etc. Now at LegCo, we are in contact with many members of the public. There is insufficient space for many social services. Now, so can you integrate the housing arrangement and the social welfare services so that there is clear planning, clear set of rules on how the housing units are to be integrated with social welfare services? When we read this document, we do not have any idea how you're going to integrate the two. There are still a lot of shortages. Now, recently there have been some improvements. There are more facilities within public housing developments, but the improvement has not been steady or clear. Now, can you introduce a clear set of rules for integrating social welfare services into housing developments? Now, can you have planning criteria to determine the priority of particular services? Now, if you are just speaking in general terms, it's not helpful. You need to make your thinking transparent. Now, if there is insufficient space, well, we'll try all to cooperate with you. Of course, please do not reserve so much land for the golf courses and clubs. No, you are only talking in general terms here. As mentioned by Dr. CHEUNG, we are trying hard to find the space by different ways. Now in 2016, for the public housing that's funded, now in the 28 developments, housing developments, we have inserted 99 social welfare facilities caring for the elderly, the disabled, the young. Now, our current approach is that whenever there is new planning exercise, the planning department and the HD will consult the departments concerned, and all the social welfare units of the government will take into account the demand in each area. For instance, if there is going to be an RCHE, we need 17,000 square feet for every 100 elderly persons to be served. So we need to plan according to each development. Do you have some planning guidelines? For that you have to ask the housing department. But the HD looks to the SWD for their needs. How about the HD? How much space do you allocate for welfare services when you have a new housing development? That depends on the project and the demand in that area. So we will work with the planning department and the other departments concerned. Maybe it's the planning department that can answer. Well, the planning department can tell us what are the guidelines or rules. Now, it must be made transparent. Can the SWD help and follow up on this? Now, under Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, for each type of facility, we have certain standards. In some cases, it depends on the population. There's a certain ratio. In some cases, it depends on supply and demand, or in other cases, whether there are available premises. Can you show us these standards and guidelines? Yes. Actually, they are on the internet. Okay, let's see them first. We need something more detailed than the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines, because those are about principles and the government doesn't follow them. For instance, the hospitals. So you don't follow the principles and you don't provide us with the documents, so we cannot understand how you do the planning. So there must be planning documents. So please provide us with the details so that the public can be knowledgeable. Now it's my turn now. We see that there are many services in need of premises right now, and there will be more need in the future. Now, the housing department is a major builder of premises, so that's why we asked the housing department to this panel meeting. Now, I'm concerned that in future new developments, the social welfare amenities building, maybe they can be more than 7 or 8 stories, so that more space is available. And also in the future new housing developments, can the ground floor be reserved for social facilities, or even the first and second floors? And thirdly, there are old housing developments with vacated or empty residential units. Can they be used for welfare purposes? And also the empty non-domestic premises, they might have been designed for another purpose, but they are no longer occupied. Now, also some ventilation spaces. Some residents may feel that there's too much ventilation, so you need to block those spaces with walls, and you can use those spaces. So how many such premises are there? You can provide the figures. Now, we mustn't consider all such spaces for RCH because that requires a lot of space, but there are other welfare services which require less space and are in need of premises. They are using only temporary premises. So also there are small NGOs that need offices. No, so you should provide us with the data, and so we know to what extent we must depend on new buildings. So now, when there are new housing developments, if there are buildings of over 24 stories, we can consider that. So you can have RCH residential care homes on the first and second floors, and then you can more services in the higher floors. Yes, sometimes the libraries can be located in such amenities buildings. Now, on whether the ground and first floors of housing developments can be used for welfare services. Now, very often there are already such facilities in newly built housing developments, but there is a very tight supply, so we will consider it. Now, can these be exemptions at the Town Planning Board? Now, we thank you for your views. Under town planning regulations, there are height restrictions very often for buildings. So you can apply for exemptions. That will take time, and we need also to consider the time for construction. That's why you need to plan ahead. We need to talk about this in advance. We have to consider the cost of development. Now, very often we have only 5 years for to everything like consultation, planning, and so on. 2 in the second round. We are already very late. Frederick Fong and Leung Kwok Hong. 1 minute.
Yes, Chairman. Para 4 is about the development of new PRHS estates, and again the residential homes for the elderly and for the disabled given very low priority. No elderly persons, disabled persons have to wait for over a decade for places, and I think the SWD is really not competitive enough. We don't have enough time. Can we have the Development Bureau and the Planning Department and the Housing Department and the SWD having a discussion with us, because the Housing Department depends on land allocated by the Development Bureau. So, I think the SWD simply doesn't have enough bargaining power. All right. Yes, let's also ask the other departments to come. I want, Mr. LegCo Hong, I want to refer to page 33 of the of CY Leung's election manifesto, retirement life, item 6. I'm particularly concerned about the housing and also residential care needs of elderly persons in the middle and lower strata. There will be premises for elderly housing and also residential facilities for the elderly. So the people vote for him because of such a promise. He said under item 6 that there would be land available for elderly housing and also elderly care facilities. All right, point noted. I really can't help laughing, Chairman. Right, I think that's all for this item 5, because we really are running out of time. So we'll note Mr. KK Fong's suggestion. AOB now. Mr. Fernando CHEUNG. Chairman, it's an urgent matter. I've just written to you on the arrest of a mentally disabled person by the police. I think there are profound implications, because if the police continue to adopt the present guidelines, or if the police do not follow these guidelines, then there will be a lot of unfairness caused to the mentally incapacitated. So can we have a meeting with the police and the security bureau, say next month, on these persons of special needs who are arrested, who have to testify or give evidence? So we'll hope to discuss some improvement measures with the police and the security bureau. We have already decided on the items to be discussed next time. Now, this issue that you've just mentioned is a very complicated one. So I think I will have a discussion with the chairman of the security panel. I think we should convene a special meeting to discuss the problems arising from this incident. Now, of course, there is a welfare perspective, but I think the process relates more to the work of the security panel. So perhaps I can talk to the security panel chairman, and I will see whether we can have a joint panel meeting, for example, before our next regular meeting. Yes, a colleague of mine has already written to the security panel chairman, and we'll see whether there will be a need for a public hearing. All right. All right. If there are no other AOB items, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.